I'm a big believer that when people can ask good questions, you live a better life.
We're going to invite Cayenne up here. Can you please give Cayenne a round of applause? Cayenne. So Cayenne, you want to maybe introduce yourself? Tell people where did you study and how do we meet each other?
Hi everyone, very happy to be here. Just to follow Dr. Ong's script, I'm from Ipoh. Went through secondary school primary and secondary school in Samtec Ipoh. Then I went to Singapore Raffles Institution under the ASEAN Scholarship from after PMR. So I did my O-level and A-levels there for 4 years. After that...
This is Bishan and then Ghim Moh campus, correct?
We were already at the Bishan campus.
Oh, you already at Bishan?
So
okay.
This was all the...
Okay.
I've always been at the Bishan campus.
Okay. Yeah.
After that, went to Oxford to do a PPE degree, and that was actually when I met Dr. Ong. He actually came to Oxford to give a talk. At that time, I think it was the second year, and the talk was hosted by the Oxford University Malaysia Club at that time. Then so happened that this was during the second year, and a few months after that, before the summer break of the second year, there was an opportunity to intern with Dr. Ong. So I applied and got to work with Dr. Ong for almost 3 months back in 20.
The internship application was also quite interesting, right? You want to say a little bit more about that?
Yeah. The internship was actually hosted by one of another Dr. Ong's former intern, Gabriel. I think she wanted to, pay it forward at the time. She also worked with Dr. Ong before, and she wanted to pay it forward. So at the time, she offered to host an internship program for someone to work with Dr. Ong for 3 months. And as you know, as part of the application, we had to write essays and so on. And even at the end of the internship, we had to do a conclusion and just like I remember it was an essay, just talking about the experience with Dr. Ong.
Yeah, and you were working at the DAP HQ at that point in time, right?
Yes.
Yeah, and you also had a chance to engage with other MPs and other DAP leaders as well, right?
So I think the internship program at the time, it wasn't a political slant, right? So even though we were based in DAP HQ, Dr. Ong actually arranged for a lot of different exposures for us. I think it's the same that what he's trying to do with the PPE program now. So at the time, we not just at the DAP side, we also had chances to go to Parliament and also visiting the constituency office and so on. So it was actually quite a well-rounded exposure to the whole Malaysia policy and also political scene throughout that 3 months. And I still remember one of the small projects that we did at the time was, I think what Dr. Ong mentioned, the PTPTN project. At the time in uni, I also was doing a course in public econs, and at the time we also covered a bit on topics like student loans, whether university education should be sponsored, should be free for all, or how do we structure a university loan program to ensure that it's equitable to everyone. And so it was during this kind of discussions and exposure during the internship that we got the experience to apply what we learned in uni to the actual situation in Malaysia.
Yeah, and I believe I published a paper under Penang Institute on that as well, which you still can find online. One of the reasons why they appointed me to be a director at PTPTN. And also the good thing about the internship was that I think Gabriel offered to pay you guys above market rates, right? I can't remember what the salary was.
Yeah, so at that time, not sure about now, but internships at the time was about 1,000 ringgit a month. And Gabriel at the time offered 5,000 ringgit for 3 months. Not a month, 5,000 ringgit for 3 months.
So this is not my own money. My former intern was wanting to pay it forward, and that was where our engagement started. But before we go into your next phase of your career path after you graduated, right? What made you want to apply for the PPE program at Oxford? We share many things in common, having studied in LSE and also in Raffles. So when you were doing your A-levels in RJ, that was probably when you started thinking about this PPE program, right?
So I think an interesting story when I was just doing a bit of personal research back to my own history, right? Why did I apply to PPE? So currently I'm an economist, and I've always thought that, now looking back, that I've always wanted to study econs when I was doing my A-levels. So as part of my A-levels, I did econs, physics, chemistry, and GP and maths, right? And I also took an additional module. Back in Singapore, it's called history econs, basically a higher level of econs. So I've always had this perception that I wanted to do econs since A-level. But when I look back at my application essays and so on, so it turns out at the time I was actually very interested in politics. I wanted to study politics in my for university, and the way the UCAS application works for the UK is that you have five slots, and if you choose to apply to Oxford or Cambridge, you can only pick either one. And generally, most people would just, like everyone else, you would just, try your luck and apply for Oxford or Cambridge. So at the time, because I wanted to study politics, just looking at Oxford or Cambridge, the Oxford program had, for politics, they only offered PPE and history and politics. So those were the only two degrees that have politics options in it. For Cambridge, it was the HSPS program. I think it was the humanities, human sciences and social. So because I had an econs background then and I was interested in politics, I naturally gravitated towards the Oxford program, and also applied to the Warwick and Manchester PP program as well. And for LSE was the government economics. So back to the question is that what really driven me to PPE was sort of mainly the interest. It was mostly by chance because I wanted to do politics and I just ended up econs. But it also attracted me in the sense that you get a chance to do other subjects than politics, which is econs, right? And luckily it turned out a bit well for me because I found my sort of calling in econs instead of politics. So I probably would be a very different person if I ended up focusing on politics rather than econs to this day.
So out of the options that you chose, did you get into all or most of the programs for the UCAS application?
I got into all except for the LSE Government and Economics program. So
you got into Oxford but not LSE?
Yes.
Okay. Yeah, but at the end of the day, what made you choose, let's say, Oxford over Warwick? Was it just the Oxford name or something else?
I think the Oxford name definitely plays a big role, but I think a unique point about the Oxford PPE program is the tutorial system, where on top of you have your normal university lectures where a professor will be talking about a topic in front of a big lecture theatre, but after that you go back to your individual colleges, and in your colleges you would have your own subject-specific tutors or professors as well, who are based in the college, and they will be responsible for conducting tutorial classes with you. And tutorial are basically 1 to 2 or 1 to 3 sessions where, let's say, right, the professor assigns you an essay topic for the week. And after you submit your essay, so every week you would meet up in the professor's office with 1 or 2 of your other batchmates, and you basically go through your essays, and the professor will challenge you, why do you write this, elaborate, and there'll be a discussion with what your PPE mates wrote on the same subject as well. So that was I think something that at least at the time, I'm not sure about now, it's not really found in other PPE programs. and I think it was a key reason why I ended up with the Oxford program.
Yeah, so in that kind of tutorial system, right, and it's probably something that you were not that familiar with. Even I think in RI or RJ, you had bigger classes and not that kind of close interaction. Definitely not professors trying to challenge the way you argue your arguments and all that. So how did you find the experience? Did you find it to be nerve-wracking?
I think it would probably be quite difficult if I didn't come from I didn't go to Oxford from A levels in Singapore. So I think a key thing that prepared me for that was that in Singapore, at least for the A level system at RI, was that it emphasized a lot of self-directed study, and there are still lectures and so on, but you basically learn how to be independent for your own learning, and how to study, what to study, how you want to arrange your time is really up to you. So it's not like back-to-back 8 to 5 classes, that kind of thing that you see in secondary school. So that sort of prepared me for the Oxford program, because again at Oxford it's even less hands-on. You're given a reading list. You go to the lecture, but lecture is just like 1 hour a week, and you don't cover everything. So it's a lot of going through the reading list on your own, learning how to learn, how to distill the key points, and also I think the real challenging part was writing essays. So at the time, depending on your subject mix, you could end up writing 2 essays a week for 8 weeks straight, and essays could be 1,500 to 2,000 words. It was quite intense. So you had to really learn quickly how to go through your reading list efficiently, how to distill the key points, how to come to your own, how to form your own opinion. So those were a bit challenging, and of course when you go to the tutorials itself, and the professor start grilling you, then sometimes you try to take the easy way out. You don't really do your readings. The professor just push you a bit, then okay, this guy didn't do your readings. So I think those were key challenges, transitioning from more Asia style of education to the PP program.
Yeah, and this was all before ChatGPT, right? Yeah, now I'm not sure how the professors will try to future-proof it, but at least for my own Intro to Philosophy program, and I'm sure that Deb also has some of these elements in the smaller tutorials, I will try to incorporate ChatGPT, DeepSeek, whatever you want to use, within the tutorial process itself, so that you can teach and learn, at the same time, how to put in better prompts, and also, enhance the learning experience. Maybe just want to add on, with regards to having those tutorials with students from other countries, maybe people who are much more used to that kind of critical thinking and engagement kind of approach. Did you find that you were able to adjust to that to your batchmates?
I think it was a learning process, but eventually you had to get there. Otherwise you're not really making use of the tutorial sessions, right? You're actually sitting in the same room with professors who are actual experts in their own fields, and they write books, they write papers that you usually read, right? So if you want to get the max out of your education, then as I said, there's a degree of learning. So you just see how more confident the other students are, especially from the UK system. But it's more of learning from them, and also adopting their style.
Last question on your PPE experience. As far as you know, like your batchmates, what kind of career paths did they end up choosing?
So for batchmates, I think I'm more familiar with those in my college. So in college, For the university as a whole, there are about 200 plus PPE students a year, but we are usually broken into our individual colleges. And in my college, there were about 7 or 8 of us studying PPE. The majority of us ended up in like finance roles in UK, in the US, myself included. Now I end up in finance as well. But we also have friends who went on to academia. There's a few of us did a master's. Someone is actually currently doing a PhD in economics now. There's also someone who is, I think he's in the statistical office in his home country in Germany, doing like data science and so on. But that's my batchmates in the UK. For Malaysian PPE students, I'm familiar with those, I think, 1 or 2 years above me and also below me. There are not many of us, about 1 PPE students from Malaysia every year. So of the 3 that I'm more familiar with, 2 actually went into consulting at BCG. One has left BCG and now doing in one of the tech firms. The other went on to do a master. So she came back to do a management program in Malaysia. But after that,
like a management trainee program.
Management trainee program in Malaysia. But after that, went on to do a master's in public administration and international development at the Harvard Kennedy School. And now I think she's at the World Bank under the Young Professionals program.
Yeah. So after PPE, you could have gone into work straight away, but you chose to do a master's at LSE in economics. Why?
So at that time, I think, as I say, I've sort of found my interest or calling in econs, and by the second or third year, I was a bit unsure whether I wanted to go into the academia route. Not unsure, so I was a bit interested in going to the academia route, and so the master's program was sort of just seeing whether this is really something for me. A key reason is because when you do PPE, you sacrifice a bit of depth for breadth. For example, compared to someone who did pure econs in Cambridge or LSE, naturally, because you have to do a bit of philosophy, you have to do politics, you don't get as much depth. And so I saw like a master's as a way to catch up a bit on the depth, and also just to see whether academia is what I want to do for PhDs, like usually 4 or 5 years, right? And
what was your conclusion?
Well, obviously, after that 1 year in LSE, I thought, well, maybe not, spending 4 or 5 years.
You didn't want to get your head permanently damaged, like some other people. Yeah. All right. So after LSE, you were coming back to Malaysia, and an offer was made to you to do something a little bit different. You want to talk about that?
Yeah. So I think the stars were somehow quite aligned in this situation. Was that by the time I sort of finished my master's, it was I was going to finish my master's in June 2018, and as we know, in May 2018 there was the GE13 and the change in government, and I believe at the time a lot of people were very excited or very excited about,
very hopeful
for the new direction that the country might go into, and naturally I was one of them. So I think at the time I also, because I used to intern with Dr. Ong, so I just texted Dr. Ong. I was like, is there any way that can help out with the new administration? Also, keeping in mind that I was going to graduate and by June 2018. So I think at the time Dr. Ong was like, things are still settling. It's just wait a while. So in the meantime, I went on with the usual job search. It's the usual stuff. For Malaysia, looking at the big banks, the GLCs, and the common one like Khazanah banks and so on. And then also trying to apply for finance roles in the London and so on. But eventually, I think Dr. Ong reached back out and said, would you like to help the Minister of Finance at MOF? And at that time, I think it was a very easy and immediate decision for me, and straight away said, yes, and that was how I ended up in coming back to Malaysia.
So, what was your experience like in, I think, two years that you were working there, and your boss at the time was Tony Phua, right? Yeah. You want to say a little bit more about that?
So, wasn't quite 2 years. It was 20 months before we got putted out by the change in government. I think one key takeaway was that politics that you learn in uni is quite different from politics in real life. That's one part. And the other part is, I think you also have to sort of separate the politics from the policy. Politics is what the politicians get up to. Policy is what the civil servants or the advisors try to come up with and influence the ministers to make certain policy decisions.
But the two things are linked, right?
Yeah, they're definitely linked. So another key thing was that you find out that you can come up with a policy that's in econs we call it the first best or
the most optimized.
The most optimized policy that the government should take. But eventually, you have to confront the political reality, and that you like it or not, there's just some certain decisions that can't be implemented. So I think when you go into policy work, it's probably quite common that you get frustrated in the sense that, why are you not doing this? Why are you not doing that? Or I prepared so much research or info to support my policy, but in the end, just because of political reasons, it gets rejected or not even considered in the first place. So from there, you sort of learn to live with it and also to work around it. So how do you take into political considerations when crafting your policies and so on?
So as opposed to just having a blank slate and using economic theory from an optimization standpoint, you have to basically do some satisficing, maybe second, third best options that is more politically feasible. Any specific policies that you can discuss that you remember that you can sanitize and then maybe talk about more generally?
Well, I think one of the key one that I was involved in was we were looking at. Sorry, this was one of the key political promise.
The toll
restructuring. So that was the key one that I was involved in. So the key thing to highlight on that part is that when you come into policy, you have a lot of different stakeholders, and each stakeholders have a different opinion on how certain things should be done. So we are not even talking about the politics level yet. We are still at the policy stage. So between different ministries, there are different preference or different ideas on how certain policies should be structured, and they are all very valid. And so actually a key part of it is also learning how to navigate these differences and how to come to a common ground before you take it to the next stage, which is convincing the ministers that this is the best way forward.
Yeah, I think I was aware of some of those challenges, having sat with Tony Phua before GE 14 to discuss these things, and then later on when we were in government together to discuss some of the parameters. And it's not easy, for example, to convince the 93 or 94-year-old Prime Minister that it's actually feasible to do some form of a toll buyout that could make the toll still function in terms of maintenance, and that this was not a bailout or cash handout to the toll concessionaires. Sadly, at the time, the economic advisor to the Prime Minister was not on the same page and maybe didn't understand the corporate finance part of it so well. But I think that's the good thing about the PP program, right? You get to have a multi-disciplinary training to allow you to look at these things from different points of view. Okay, so maybe just last question on serving at the Ministry of Finance. how was it like in terms of engaging with the other people that were part of your team? I know some of them, people like Hafiz Noshams, who is an economist now with S&P, and then Yenki, the chief of staff, and others. How were the dynamics like?
So again, I was quite lucky in the sense that I was the youngest in the team at the time. So and just being fresh out of uni. So there were a lot of things that I still didn't know, right? So I still remember in the first few weeks when I was still following Dr. Ong around, when you were still at the MOF, and we were attending meetings. And during the meetings, there were a lot of terms, finance terms being thrown, and at that time, because of again PPE, I focused a lot more on econs and not finance. And that time, I told Dr. Ong, I didn't understand half of the meeting content, but luckily part of having a great team during that time was that everyone was from different background. We had Hafiz who had an econs background. Then there was someone with a finance background. Yenki was from finance background as well. And through working with them, you quickly learn. You learn from them, from econs, finance stuff, and seeing how they apply their experience to the work. And that was, I think that was really what I thought was also quite valuable from the experience as well.
Yeah, so one of the USPs or unique selling propositions of the PPE program is that we want to curate a student experience pathway where you can get some exposure to what Cayenne had gone through when he started work at MOF, but at a sort of like earlier stage. Meaning, after your first year, you have certain, even during your studies, you have certain options to be able to go and participate in different think tank conferences, to go out to start exposing yourself to things that you don't know about. But after 3 years of that kind of exposure, participate in some research projects. By the time you come out and graduate as a PP student from Taylor's, you would probably have the kind of exposure that a second or third year person in the corporate world will have. And in some ways, maybe even more than that. Because I'm guessing that some of the things that you learn at MOF, you would never have been able to learn if you were in a normal corporate job, correct?
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah. So, so after that, after the Ministry of Finance, I was there for 2 months, so I know the kind of pressures that these guys were under. You went to the Securities Commission. As an economist, what was that role like? And then after that, I'll wrap up.
Yeah. So at the SC, I was actually working, I think one of your members of IIP.
Yeah. Dr. Alan?
Yeah. So Alan was the chief economist at SC at the time. And I think looking back at the experience, what my time at SC helped was a lot. The work ended up pivoting back to econs. So during MOF times, there was not as much econs. There was still some, but not full-time role, right? But back at the SC, it was really full-time econs, and it was a lot of translating what you learn during the university into actual econs research. So let's say in textbooks, you learn about GDP, you learn about inflation and so on, but a lot of it is quite just concepts. But at SC, it was an econs research role. So what Alan, basically learning from Alan and the team is that how you translate and learn how to analyze these concepts in the Malaysia context. And that was quite helpful because in my current role at CIMB, I was tasked to cover a completely new country, which was Thailand, right? So, and with that experience, is like, how do you apply what you know about analyzing Malaysia to analyzing a completely different country, but using the same framework or frame skills?
Yeah. So you were at Securities Commission, you were at S&P for a short time, and then now you are at CIMB, working with the economics team, Treasury and Market Research, covering Thailand. So how has your different roles and experience before this prepare you for your current role?
I think at least a key theme that I see in my career thus far is that I'm more inclined towards research. That's my personal interest, and so at least getting that training in conducting research and presenting your findings to an audience, that was the key component in all the jobs. But comparing between more public versus private experience, for I think the key difference is in terms of your stakeholders. So for public roles, your audience tend to be more internal. Is slightly more casual in the sense that people will listen and you can talk on and on about stuff. But when you go into more private type of roles, it becomes more external facing. You're dealing with clients, and some of these clients, they don't really have the time or interest to really dig deep into your research, why you do certain things, and a lot of it is more. So what's your conclusion, and how does it affect me? So learning to transition between dealing with internal audience versus an external audience, how to present your ideas effectively. I think that was the key difference between the public and private type of roles. Sure. Sector, I mean.
Yep. So Cayenne, I'd like to wish you all the best, in your current career path and future career paths as well. And we hope to be able to invite you back to Taylor's to talk to some of our PP students. Can we give a round of applause to Cayenne?
Thank you.
Ladies first. Deb, you want to introduce yourself and say a little bit about how you came into Taylor's and also the PP program?
Hi, I'm Devoshri. I was introduced before. Okay. I am from New Delhi, India. And I came to Taylor's 2 years ago in 2023. And I've been in Malaysia since past 6 years. Before that, for the last 11 years of my life, it's been a very interesting academic journey. I completed my master's from University of Warwick and then completed my PhD from University of Aberdeen. Something that I think I've not mentioned to you as well. In University of Aberdeen, I was actually tutoring on a PPE program. That's where I was first introduced to the concept of a PPE program. I came to Malaysia in 2019 as a fresh postdoctoral fellow at University of Malaya, and joined University of Malaya as a part-time lecturer and a research consultant, and then from there, directly to Taylor's.
Yep. And that you were teaching modules that were in the Masters in Public Policy program, right, at UM?
Yes, that's correct. Yeah.
Which modules were you teaching?
I was teaching economics and policy making. It's very interesting that you asked this because when I was teaching that specific module in Masters of Public Policy, I realized that the way economics is taught with an aspect of politics in it is very different. So you could teach them models, but if it's not politically applicable, they don't make sense. So that's something that was, and especially because it was a master's level program, it was much more applicable and much more hands down. So that was something I realized, and I was teaching macro and micro both to the MPP students, and so I had to teach them with a hint of politics and, as they say, with a hint of salt to make them understand that whatever you're doing right now is very good theoretically, but it will have very different political implications.
And these were mature students that you were teaching mostly.
Oh, yes. Yeah. Some of them even came from political backgrounds, some of them, not just political backgrounds in Malaysia, but also political backgrounds all across the world.
Yeah. Thanks, Deb. Hitch, you want to introduce yourself?
Yes, so I'm Harmahinder. My students and colleagues call me Dr. H because it's a very long name. It's a long story to the long name. But let me not go there because that itself will take 15 minutes. So I'm actually born in Klang. I'm a Malaysian, born in Klang. So I spent my formative years in primary school, I think up till standard 4, primary school in Simpang Lima. Those of you who are from Klang, you will know that Simpang Lima and LaSalle students are always we are next to each other. So Simpang Lima was where I was from. And Klang is actually my maternal grandparents' hometown. That's where I was born, because culturally in a Punjabi family, when a daughter is going to give birth, she goes back to her maternal hometown to give birth. So hence I was born in Klang. But my parents, my dad's family is actually from Sentul, from Kuala Lumpur. So in Standard 4, we moved to my paternal hometown, which is where we live now, in Kapong. Sentul, then we moved to Kapong, and continued my primary education and my secondary education in the Kapong Baru Secondary School, SMKB. Now, in a Punjabi family, you either become a lawyer, you either become a doctor, or you probably end up becoming an accountant, sometimes an engineer, right? So those were the options that I had when I was about to finish my secondary school. So we come from humble settings, so probably not someone who had the financial means to travel abroad. So I was trained and educated locally. I did the University of London external degree program for law, and that time you either get into a public university to do law, or you did it privately in the UOL program. So did my master's also with UOL, and from a very young age I actually had the passion to become a teacher. And I remember my sister and I, my sister is older to me, we used to play teacher. I'll just pretend to be the teacher and she'll be the student, or she'll be the teacher and I'll be the student. And from a very young age, I had this innate need to want to tell people things and to share my thoughts, and to share my views, to stand in front, to speak. So when I was actually trained to become a lawyer, I actually took up the training to become a lawyer. I read the law actually to become a legal academic. I didn't want to practice law from the very start. I knew that was not what I wanted to do. And I was also very interestingly, and now as I look back, very interestingly excited and always interested to find out more about religion. And religion is obviously very philosophical. There's a lot of philosophical concepts behind it. So you need to understand and grasp very philosophical thinking behind how things are in place, and how not just the stars, how the planets align and things like that. Right? So when I took on this degree in law, and I wanted to become an academic to teach the law, at the back of my mind, I did it because I always thought that I was interested in larger concepts about life and about things that are very complex, and bringing them down, breaking them down, and sharing them with individuals. So when I have, over my career as academic, so I backtrack a little bit. After I finished my law degree and my master's, I went into consulting at KPMG Malaysia for a short stint, about 4 years. And it was at that time when I did my master's and then went into academia. So I've been in academia now since 2004. So it's a very long time, 21 years now, right? I enjoy it. I enjoy influencing the minds of young individuals in the right way, of course, positively. So when I was in academia, in teaching, I had the opportunity to teach a variety of subjects. And it's always serendipity how I end up teaching these subjects. And coincidentally, these are very complex subjects. So equity and trust, land law, jurisprudence, one of the PPE subjects that we will eventually be teaching. So all these subjects are very philosophical. They have got, that background on foundational concepts which can be very foundational and philosophical. And I enjoy teaching them. I enjoy bringing that to life in front of the students and so on and so forth. So, sorry, that was a very long answer to a very short question. So, the introduction about myself, that's what I am, that's who I am. And being in a position of influence is important. So, when I got the opportunity to serve as Dean in 2011, as the Dean of Taylor's Law School then, I grabbed the opportunity because I knew that if I wanted to make a difference in academia, I needed to be in a position of influence as well. And of course, I've been now serving as Dean Head of School for the last 15 years. This is my 17th year in Taylor's University. I believe in this university because of its grounding on very basic principles, the basic principles of giving you a chance to try, letting you fail, and letting you pick yourself up. I think that is what Taylor's is about for me. And that, to me, will be the essence of how this program will also grow.
Yeah, thanks, H. I think your explanation is also helpful in terms of us understanding your interest in this, in heading or rather curating and helping on, navigate the PP program through the bureaucratic ecosystem. I want to ask you, H, when you were first asked by the then Deputy Vice Chancellor, Pradeep, to visit the UK to do some sort of a feasibility study on the PP program and how it may be applicable to Malaysia. What were your initial thoughts, and what was your experience like going to the UK to find out more?
Okay, so how did it all start? It started in July 2022. We were presenting our business plan. Heads of schools, we have to present our business plan for the budgeting cycle that comes next in the next year. So Prof. Pradeep, who was the then Deputy Vice Chancellor, looked at me and said, okay, whatever you have presented is business as usual. He's in his usual tone. And he said, so what are you going to do differently? What's next? So then I said, yeah, we need to go beyond law. We can't just do law for the rest of our lives in Taylor's, so we need to go beyond law. So he said, if it's going to be beyond law, then what is it that you want to do? What is it that you should be doing? Right? Why don't you consider new programs out of the sphere of law, but still within the periphery, of law? And then we had a discussion, and we coincidentally just landed on public policy type programs, administration type programs. And someone in the room said, "Why don't you consider PPE? Because my daughter actually wanted to study PPE but couldn't get a chance. So why don't you do it?" And that's how it actually started, right? But I knew about PPE programs because I had heard about it in the past. So I took this idea and I worked with our marketing team. Our marketing team came up with a study, an environmental study. And then, of course, as part of the benchmarking exercise, I get to travel, right? So I went to the UK. I visited many universities, including Oxford. I attended their lectures and I attended their tutorials, and I was really amazed. Warwick, I visited King's College in London, I visited Manchester. Of course, these are also partner universities that we work with for law anyway, right? Some of them at least. And that taught me about how the PP program should be run in Malaysia. What are the good practices that we can bring back to our current ecosystem in Taylor's? Because I've been here for a very long time, I know how to navigate the system in Taylor's, and I know how to fit it into our current system in Taylor's. So that's the advantage that I had. So when I went across to the UK, it was all about learning. How I felt excited because we were going to do something new and something that I thought will be very meaningful. And before I went to UK, I must share this, because Ken Ming also influenced my thinking a little bit at that point. So it was also very coincidental, and just like our friend who spoke earlier, he said that the stars had aligned. In my case, the planets also had aligned, because whilst we wanted to do something different for the law school, not known to us in the background, Dato' Loy, who's the owner of this institution, had turned 60, and he, in his own space, was thinking about how he is going to create a next generation of leaders, out of his students. And as a university, he wanted to have something that was going to be a platform for nation building. So he had this word with Prof. Pradeep. He shared his aspirations with Prof. Pradeep. And Prof. Pradeep said, we are planning to do this, in the law school, and, let's talk about it more. And then I think Dato arranged for us to meet with Ken Ming and Liu Chin Tong in December 2022. And we spoke about it, we thought about it more and more. And that's when, after that, I went to the UK in January to do that study. So the rest is, of course, history.
And after your trip to the UK, did you feel that yes, there could be a marketplace for the PP program in Malaysia, and yes, tailors would be in a position to host such a program.
Yes. I was inspired by my visit to the UK, yes, certainly, but I was cautious about it because I knew that it was something very different and something perhaps unknown to the Malaysian setting. But of course, like anything new, you need to educate. So I think with the right people on board, so we brought Ken Ming on board, with the right people on board, we build the courage to do and to move into the unknown. But I think we were cautious, but we were very hopeful and confident at the same time that this would grow. As I said earlier, given the setting in tailors where you are allowed to try, fail, pick yourself up, get smacked a few times, fail again, I think this environment will help this program grow, and I think it will grow and become very successful.
So Deb, you were first brought into the PP program as sort of like the economics anchor, and now you're a program director. What are some of your aspirations for the program as you take up this new role?
I've been a program director for a year now, so it's been a very fun and a steep learning curve. When we started, applying for the MQA approvals, there was a lot of back and forth, and that time, of course, when we were dealing with so many forms, we kind of also understood that it was to curate the program, to make it better, so that when it's actually in the practical sense, there's much more refinement. Now, after all this has been done and we've got the approvals, I realized that with the student experience pathway, which you will be taking the students ahead with, it gives a very niche angle to our PPE program. So how our PPE program is designed is in a manner that for the first 2 years, students get to do all the theoretical concepts, right? So all the three angles, philosophy, politics, and economics together, the first 2 years. And the third year is where they get practical exposure. Of course, the first 2 years also, students would be experiencing the student experience pathway. Now, having said that, during all this journey, my aspiration as a program director is to expose the students to a wide gamut of experiences and make the program much better. So we already have a very established and star-studded industry panel who have been very kind to us, giving their suggestions and being very involved in our program development. It's my intention that in the future as well, I make these linkages much more stronger and make the program much more better and more suitable for the upcoming generations.
Maybe share a few thoughts about how the PP program can partner with other organizations. For example, Pravin here is a member of the Malaysian Philosophy Society, a very interesting group of people. He has some friends here as well who are part of that society. What kind of partnerships do you think we can have with an organization like this?
So since PP is not just any theoretical based program, it's a very practical based program. In fact, we have an upcoming conference coming up in July on philosophy. So the idea is to ensure that there are more collaborations externally. So Praveen here is from the Malaysian Philosophy Society. So we intend to collaborate with them and engage our students in that society so that they see the practical sort of philosophy, especially in a subject like philosophy where we always think it's very abstract. It's not practical at all. And when we met Praveen and his team, we realized that there's much more practical aspect to it, and that's what we want to expose our students as well. Apart from philosophy, of course, economics is always a main stream agenda of anybody who's doing a program which has economics in it. So we intend to expose our students to research projects and even corporates, and this could be done during our 3 years, or this is definitely done in the final year when they go in for the internship.
Maybe last question to H before we open up. What are some of the challenges that you think you've experienced as somebody who has overseen this program, and how have you worked together with others to overcome some of these challenges?
I think one of the first challenges that I faced was to convince myself that I can do this. So I've passed that stage, I think. Secondly, to convince the internal stakeholders. And I think when there is will, there's of course way. The internal stakeholders, of course, are people who are approving the program internally. Will this program sell? Will this program be something that we are going to find difficult to sell? Will there be an uptake? After all, we are a private institution. That's all understandable. Those are the kind of questions that we must answer first before we can embark on this journey. So we crossed that as well. Then, of course, came the challenge with our regulatory bodies, the MQA particularly, and MOH. Because this is not a known program in our country, we'll be the first. Getting an application to them and convincing them that this is something that we should do in the way that we want to do it was somewhat a hurdle, not insurmountable, but we managed to cross it simply because there was no mold for us to fit into. Because it's a hybrid program, they are so used to having programs within one discipline. They have templates that we work with. And understandably so, because they are a regulatory body, they need to have a level of consistency, a level of rigor in each discipline. But this was bringing three disciplines together, not known to them, right? So for example, when a panel is going to approve this, which discipline does the panel come from? So they had to answer these questions, and of course they put a panel together, economics, philosophy panel together, approved the program. We have gotten our provisional accreditation, and we are now poised to launch the program. I think now the challenge would be to make sure that we live up to this promise of doing the PP program well. And now this is where the rubber hits the road, right? In April, when we launch this program, we must put all our energy, our sweat, and our blood into this to make this work. Now, of course, we are cautiously optimistic, as Ken Ming always says, that this will do well. Cautiously optimistic. So we know of probably the challenges that may come our way along the way. Now we are heading into this journey, and we are very well aware that we will have an oversight body called MQA, who is not very familiar with this type of a program, coming now to finally accredit this program. So they've given you the provisional accreditation, which means that you promise them that you will do all these things, and based on those promises, they have approved it. So in 3 years' time, they'll come and see, okay, you promised us, we approved it, have you done it, right? So that's going to be where we are, that is the hurdle that we will need to cross next. And so everything that we do in the next 3 years will be built towards making sure that this actually works and that it is actually successful. So those were the sort of thinking behind it.
All right, great. Yeah, with that, can we open up the time for Q&A for anyone, whether it's parents or students or potential students, current students, on the PP program?
Yeah, my background is in psychology. I'm a psychotherapist. And my question is, for the PPE program, will there be element of social psychology being integrated in? Because we have been seeing the policymaker, when they come up with new policy, they never do the studies, on the ground studies, so people feel it's hard for them to accept the policy change. So I think it's very important for the students to understand how the social psychology works, and also so that when they draft the new policy, they will be more aware of the changes that need to be done.
Sure, yeah. Great question. I think the TFM event was at a shared working space somewhere in Kelana Jaya, if I'm not mistaken. Three responses. The first response would be that students who are interested in psychology can take modules using their elective options. So this is something that is practiced at Taylor's commonly, and we have, I think, 20 credits that are out there for this kind of option. That's one. Second response would be that one of the proposals that I did, speak to H and also to Pradeep on, is rather than have a philosophy, politics, and economics undergraduate program, why not experiment with a psychology, politics, and economics program? It's still called PPE. And it may still be something that we can put on the table later on if, let's say, the PPE program gets more traction. Because I do feel, I think the psychological underpinnings of different disciplines, not just in terms of public policy, but if you look at the branch of economics that looks at behavioral economics, there's also a social-psychological component to it. I think that part is also relevant. And then the third response would be that I think for some of these public policy questions and areas, I think it would be probably the most appropriate to address it at the level of a master's program, either a master's in public policy or perhaps shorter executive education programs that focus on different aspects of public policy design, including from a socio-psychological standpoint. So this is something that we may want to put on the table later on once we stabilize the PP program and get enough academics to come in to build up that kind of academic and intellectual ecosystem. Yep. So yeah, thanks for your suggestion. Any other questions? Yes. Praveen, you want to ask a question? Is it you're looking around and are you sure? Samantha, you want to ask a question? No. Okay. Yeah. Any other questions? Yes, gentleman up there in the coat and the cap.
Good morning, everyone. I'm currently a teacher in a private tuition institution. I used to did my ADTP program, the American Degree Transfer Program, but because I didn't technically finish my degree yet, is it possible that I can transfer all my credits on my previous program to this new PPE program, so that whatever I learned from my past program doesn't really go to waste in a sense? Thank you.
I'll take that question. So for credit transfers, there's a process that you will have to go through. So you can submit your current credentials to our enrollment team, and then they will send it over to the school for an evaluation of which credits can be transferred. So when we look at the credits that can be transferred, there are two ways of doing it. One is we look at the content mapping and the skills mapping. So that's the second one, the skills mapping. So as long as the content and the skills map to what we currently have, credit transfer can be given for certain number of credits, which translate into certain number of modules. So I can't tell immediately yes or no, because we'll have to look at the content and the skills that you have already acquired based on the current qualifications and credentials that you have. So do approach our recruitment team and submit your relevant information, and they will then advise you and take it up from there.
You can come down later on to just get the contact of the relevant person. Yeah. Maybe one final question. Yes, gentleman in the middle, wearing the tailor's t-shirt. Same t-shirt as me.
Yes, hello Professor Ong, Dr. Deb and Dr. Harmahinder. My name is Isaac. I am a third-year law student. So currently I'm interning in Parliament of Malaysia. All right.
Under a specific MP or just under?
In general, okay. Actually. So basically I'm under the Dewan Negara, House of Senate basically. So my question is a very simple question. Where do you see this degree 10 years down the line? Like, because the law school has been established for decades, under the helm of Dr. Harmahinder. So where do you see this degree 10 years down the line?
You want to answer that now? Add on?
Yeah, I think I would love to answer that. Okay, so one of the basic ideas of proposing this degree, apart from all the research that was done by tailors, was to produce a generation of critical thinkers. Okay, so nowadays, one of the most common problems that employers face when they are recruiting the newer generation is that there's a lack of critical thinking, or providing solutions, thinking for solutions. So what we intend to do and to contribute to the Malaysian society with this program is to produce a generation of leaders, a generation of critical thinkers. So 10 years down the line, I am really hopeful that the graduates from this program would be leading or would be in leadership positions in different organizations.
Yeah, I hope that we'll be able to see the first Prime Minister from Taylor's University who has graduated from the PPE program. Of course, Ken Ming will say, don't talk about politics only. But I mean, that's just an example of my aspirations, because that's where really we started. Can we have a Prime Minister from our university? And this is the platform to have that opportunity.
Yeah, maybe 10 years is a bit too short to wait. Maybe you have to wait longer. But maybe in 10 years we can have a Prime Minister that's from the Industry Advisory Panel. I think that one may be a bit more realistic.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or in the making.
Okay, maybe just to add on a bit, my aspirations for this program 10 years down the road would be that there will be, firstly, many other such programs in the Malaysian ecosystem, because I think this will be able to grow, the larger PPE ecosystem in Malaysia and be able to attract international students to come. Second would be that the PPE program is at Taylor's is not just the best PPE program in Malaysia, but also in the region, in its ability to be able to attract very good students and also very good industry partners, including some of the organizations that I talked about just now. And then thirdly, we would have a strong enough alumni group that are able to facilitate different kinds of career pathways in terms of door opening, internship opportunities for future generation of PPE students. So that is sort of like this paid forward ecosystem that Cayenne benefited from in that small little internship circle that I've curated over time. Yep. So I hope that answers your question. Okay, with that, yes, you wanted to ask, since Praveen has been very supportive of the PPE program since its inception, I'll let him have the final question.
Morning, Professor. Morning, Good morning, Dr. Harmahinder. My question is, for those students who've just graduated and they're waiting for the April, September, and the September semester, what can they do in their free time to best prepare themselves for the program? Okay, I think I'll quickly answer that. Can always apply for an internship position with a member of parliament, a state representative, or any other organization, including some of those that I named out there, as part and parcel of your exposure, your early student experience pathway. Because that will be what I think you would have to get used to in terms of your non-academic learning in Taylor's, and hopefully that will also help inform your academic learning as well. And then other things that you can do would be some of the things that you do, Praveen, to attend different talks and different public events, and then post them on LinkedIn so that you can also refine your own thinking on a number of subjects and start to grow your network in terms of the kind of experiences that I talked about just now. Yeah. Okay. With that in mind, I think there are no more questions. Let's give a round of applause to H and also to that. And then we'll go to the final segment of today's show, which is the Are We Okay duo of myself and Peter. Hey, Peter.
Hello. Maybe I'll start with these.
Yes.
I don't have a doctorate in anything, nor am I from any Ivy League, all right? Today, definitely this session does make me feel a little bit smaller in this chair.
Hey, why? I think the whole point and the value that you bring, Peter, is the fact that you have experience outside the academic world, right?
Yeah.
And I think when we talk about the future of the work, skills for next generation, this is the kind of discussion we want to have, not just the academic discussion, but also talking to people from industry. And maybe you can just give a little bit of background in terms of how you started Mr. Money, what you're doing before that, and then I'll go on to some of the questions that have got to do with the title of today's discussion.
Right. So for me, for many of you, if you watch my show, you know that I started off in the insurance and unit trust industry, and then after I got my registered financial planning license, I was aspiring to be an independent financial planner. But later I looked at the market, and I personally have a little bit of belief that there could be a shift in terms of moving towards more fintech-based kind of society. Yeah, and I thought that what can I do if, let's say, the world is going to change? And when I dissect all the different areas of how I believe the future will look like, I think I probably stand the highest chance in the media and marketing space first, before I think about being involved in building a fintech product. And that's how I get started, and I eventually built a media company as of today.
Yeah. So the media company, what is the name, and what is sort of like your business plan? You know, the what you can reveal moving forward.
Right. So to put it in short, our company name is actually called FinLip Media. The whole belief is that there's no one single, say, influencer kind of thing, but rather everyone represents a domain expertise. And the whole goal of it all, I would say the vision of the whole company is very simple: to help people make decisions so that they can live a rich and happy life. To help people make good decisions to live a rich and happy life. So that decision could be made in the form of whether is it financial, whether is it a form of policy decisions, like what kind of policies do you want to support and so on. And therefore, you'll see a representation of it in the form of RVOK, where you're the main host of it, right? Yeah. And in terms of the future, where we are looking at, currently we work a lot with financial institutions and also certain government agencies and bodies, mainly to promote financial literacy and to help people to understand a different way of interpreting situations as well. And ultimately, if things goes well, then we're going to move towards a more fintech-based kind of company where we bring the whole idea of financial planning to online entirely.
Yeah, I think we'll be watching this space closely. I know you've discussed some of those plans with me. I'm excited to see how it will be realized in terms of the different technology plans that you have. But now that your company has grown from its I would say quite humble beginnings, you have I think about 20 staff now.
Yep, about 20 staff now, and still humble.
But growing, yes. I think growing with maybe some interesting ambitions. So when I've seen your staff numbers grow from when I first started doing the recording in December to now, you've basically doubled in size. And usually when we hear about this kind of employer challenge of hiring staff with critical thinking skills, right? In your kind of media setting, media company, what do you understand by critical thinking skills that would be useful in your context?
So as just now Karim was talking about the tutor's room, everything all, that's one thing that we do a lot in our office right now, because what we do realize is that when it comes to even the media space, there are certain people who are what we call video editors or either social media managers, where what they do is that they just generate content. But there's the other group of people that would say that you're more towards a content creator, where you put your heart and soul into figuring out how does a content really work. And this is where it gets a little bit more philosophical, and it requires you to be a little bit of a critical thinker. So one thing that we do generally in the office is that, hey, let's say we sit down together, we pick up the Age newspaper or whatever headlines they are, pick it up, and then we get someone to really research and go in depth. And then we help them to look at it, ask questions, and help them look at that one piece of news through different lens, right? And from that different lens, then you got to curate your opinion and your narrative. Yeah, and I think that is something that is very important. A lot of people think that it's maybe just about news, but it's actually the ability to ask good questions, right? I'm a big believer that when people can ask good questions, you live a better life. Yeah, and why did I end up doing what I do is it also all started because I started asking questions. Do I want to live until 50 years old to realize that the financial planning industry itself is very much shifted online and I'm a very few left, right? So these are the questions that you're going to start asking, and then you start questioning what are the different approaches that I can approach this, and in the end make a stance and an opinion and say, I'm going to believe that this is the version of things that are going to be, and then I take the actions that reflect those opinions.
Yeah, so I think you've gone about it quite systematically in terms of trying to future-proof yourself, so to speak, so that you're not out of a job, but are able to build what you want, to build, which is a sustainable business in this media and fintech, or finlit space. But on the issue of talent and the kind of critical thinking skills, I remember this conversation that we had, whereby I said, look, when I read the Edge newspaper, I read it probably with a different lens from a normal consumer, in the sense that when I read a particular headline about a particular company, right, I would say, hey, based on this headline or based on this news item, what would I say to the CEO of the company, right? And in my case, I often can have access to that CEO, right? So then you start to think differently in terms of how you want to analyze the information, how you want to think about solutions to some of the challenges or opportunities that have been highlighted in that particular news piece. Or you may think about, how does this news item affect potential customers of this particular company, or how will it affect the larger policy ecosystem that different companies are part of, right? So I think these are the kind of critical thinking skills that perhaps the younger generation, without any sort of like formal training, without any kind of exposure, they would probably be somewhat lacking in this area, right?
Yeah, totally agree. I think one of the things that I do find in the younger generation is that they don't really read, because information is so readily available today. You can watch it all from YouTube and so on. But there's a difference, right? It's kind of like when you talk about information, it's very much like food. If someone digested it and vomited it out and then give it to you, you can survive with that, but it's not going to be the highest nutrition factor thing, right? Yeah, the highest nutrition factor thing, even when you talk about fruits, is the fruit as a whole, right? Yeah, and the same thing with education, with knowledge. I believe that reading helps you it forces you to really think, because the truth is that the value of reading or acquiring knowledge, it's not in the material itself, but in your ability to think. It's just like when you read The Age, yours will be the direction of, how do I approach the CEO and what are some things that I can collaborate them. Now, for us, in my company, naturally, it will be what kind of financial decisions based on this information can my audience make that will help them live a rich and happier life, right? So it requires you to think. I guess my point I want to make is that it doesn't matter whether it's a lecture, doesn't matter whether it's an article or textbook. The thing today is you have to think when the material is being presented to you, rather than just accepting the conclusion and then just say, great, this is what it is, and let's move on.
Yeah, maybe just to add to that, since we're talking about the PPE, future of work, different skill set, I think one of the value propositions that the PPE program wants to try to bring is to be able to, educate and expose the students to using different frameworks, right? So, for example, Cayenne is trained more in terms of the economics frameworks, and that is good, but that is only one typology, right? Just now you talked about the social psychological frameworks, right? So those are different kind of theoretical frameworks that will challenge you to think in a different way. The philosophical frameworks will challenge and make you think in a different way. The kind of frameworks that political scientists bring to the table, whether it's in terms of how they measure and define democracy, how they measure and define what are the different levels of freedom that are out there in the world under different political systems. These are all different frameworks that can challenge your mind to basically use different parts of your brain, so to speak, and use different frameworks to triangulate your viewpoints on how to understand different problems and come out with different solutions, right? So that is a skill set that you actually have to refine over the course of many, many years. But with a good foundation, good building blocks, hopefully you'll have the kind of skill set that a Swiss Army knife can have to face the world, so to speak. Peter, next question. We often talk about AI taking away jobs from human beings. Here I think Talent Corp has done an excellent job in terms of publishing a very in-depth study on the kind of jobs that may or may not be affected by AI, and more importantly, the skill sets that you can have in order to future-proof yourself from being sort of like made obsolete by AI. In your your industry, in your experience, what are some of the things that you have been thinking about in terms of how to use AI to enhance the skill sets of your employees, yourself even, and the value proposition that you have, and the kind of things that you want to do to future-proof, your business proposition, from being made obsolete?
I think with the AI age today, right, it makes it more obvious whether do people use their brain lah. Now, I'll just put it that way lah. Many of you who actually work, either you're with colleagues or you're an employer or you have a colleague student in the same group, group project, you'll realize that some people actually uses AI in such a manner where they just copy and pasting. They ask the question bulat, just put in there, get the answer, they just churn it out, and then when you ask them actually what have you gotten there, right? They can't answer you. I think lecturers would face this situation quite often, and it makes you angry, right? Yeah. But the truth is that we have to acknowledge that AI ultimately, at this point in time, is still very much directed by your questions, the way you train it, the way you want it to be. So when people say that AI is actually non-biased, it's not true because it depends on the person who trains it. Now, there's different school of thoughts that ultimately it could be AI training AI models, but I think that's a whole different talk altogether. But the point I'll make is this, right, is that it makes it more important that you are engaging your brain activity to actually ask questions. Now, so I give you a very good example of how I use AI within my company and how I actually get my team to use it. I don't stop my team from using ChatGPT. I use ChatGPT quite a lot as well. But whenever I look at their quality of work, if it deteriorates, the first thing I do is I look at their prompts. Now, and if their prompts are bad, I will just tell them straight away up front, what is the point of me hiring you? Might as well get an intern to enter the prompt. Because you're not putting in your thoughts into it to curate. The key is you must be asking very good questions and using a ChatGPT on AI as a brainstorming partner, just to have a mental spa. And ultimately, if you're like me, your grammar is not so good, then you use it to help you craft out a better message with a better grammar. Pretty much that's about it. But you need to give your thoughts into it. So, for example, a good prompt will end up being such a way where I want to create a content talking about, say, is it the best time to invest in EV? Yeah. Now, if you just put it like that, I can tell you this is a bad prompt. The next thing is you should be telling the prompt, like, here are some of the articles I read, here's a reference, and based on reading it, here are my thoughts and my opinion. Now, it's very important to understand where you can beat AI as well, right? AI is good in big data, but AI is not that good yet, at least consumer AI, with your emotions. So, can you describe your emotions after you read an article to the prompt and let them know that after reading through this, here are my feelings of the matter. I'm starting to feel a little bit FOMO that I should be buying. However, I also think that it may not be the right decision. And based on what I've read, I'm a little bit torn. Could you give me 5 points to convince me why I should buy and tell me another 5 points why I should not? Now, I can tell you that when you come up with a prompt like that and when you use AI in such a manner, it will give you a much better quality answer. But here it is, right? And I have to say that many programs in the market doesn't teach you to think. They teach you to absorb something and use it. And here's where I find it very interesting whenever I see PPE students and PPE graduates, is that they are more accustomed to questioning and thinking, and especially if the person has consultant background as well. Yeah. Then they're more focused in questioning models. They are more focused on questioning why you think that way. And then with that, they form their opinion. And if you look at it, it's actually a similar way of how anyone climbs up the corporate career. It just happens quite instinctively for them to be able to do that. Like, to give a very simple example, over the years, one philosophy that I hold very dear to is when I first started in the sales line, one thing I came to learn is that you only focus on things that you can control. You can never you can never control whether someone buys from you, whether you get good result at the end of the year, but you can focus on tying up all the little details to ensure that you're doing the right things. And only many years later, then we see Ryan Holiday talks a lot about Stoic, and which is exactly the same thing. Focus on what you can control and let go what you can't. And that way you live a happier life and your likelihood of making a better result. So my point I want to say is that I think the people today in industry itself, if you're only focusing on specific hard skill set, that makes you replaceable. But if your focus is in developing your framework of thought and you make sure that you have a replicable thought process and framework, it can ensure you being successful. Because if you do not have a proper framework of thought, you are actually just approaching a subject instinctively and you end up doing it well, you're being lucky. Yeah. So I guess that's the answer to that.
So that means if I were to sort of like throw this back at you, if let's say Peter Yong, the way you think can be easily reproduced by ChatGPT, then AI would be able to produce a video version of yourself that can say very basic things. But if let's say you are always constantly trying to upgrade yourself and your team is helping you to also find new value propositions, it is something that AI would not be able to replicate 100%. They will not be able to catch up with you in terms of how you are developing new products, new ideas, new ways of communication that are fresh, that can anticipate future market trends and even ride on current market trends. Something like that? Would you?
I would say there's something like that. However, if we definitely talk to an AI expert, they would argue because I've also seen the other side where how AI can really modulate such thing. But I still think that there's an age for being a human. Yeah.
Actually, for me, if let's say AI can replace myself and Peter for our podcast and be able to do it perfectly, so that you guys don't know, I think we'll be quite happy to be able to do that.
Scalable.
Yeah, scalable. And then for us, we can go out and spend our time to maybe pitch new ideas to monetize the product. But to be able to train the LLM that way, I think that in itself is a skill set. Maybe we can talk about, let's say, Peter, going back to university again, right? You study at UPM. Yep. And if let's say you were to go back to university again, how would you do things differently? It can be studying a different course. It can be the way you want to network with different people. It may be the internship experiences that you want to have access to. How would you do things differently?
I would say that I wouldn't do things too much differently based on the current look at my life. However, if I have that imaginary parallel universe that I can go into it, I would take either a very technical path by learning computer science, because it allows me on-ground kind of thing to...
Some programming?
Yes, programming to be able to develop. Now, that would be last time. But if I think about it in today, with all the facilities that we have, I would say that I would start off with a PPE if I can. Not because we are in tailors, but really, I came to learn to think the way I think because of multiple exposure with many intelligent people, and I slowly picked up and I slowly learned. And I still think that in terms of intellectual ability, I don't think I'm anywhere near academics. I'll just put it that way, right? But I pick up whatever I can to be able to be used in my normal daily life, right? And my business. Now, however, if you can start off with that framework of mind of thinking, and then you move on to the next thing, is that if I want to be an academic, then I go towards the path of furthering in public policies or something like that, which, fun fact, my sister is actually a doctor, assistant professor in Japan University in public policies, right? Yeah. But on the other hand, then at the master level, I'll start picking up maybe like computer science. Then that gives me a very good combination of a very hard skill and good thinking process, right? And why I would say PPE? Because it covers everything. Yeah, it covers, number one, philosophy, which is all about thinking frameworks, which is about how you think. You may think that it's not practical. Oh, but trust me, it's so practical, right? Yeah, it's just that one of the subjects that you really need a bit more experience in life to really bring it back down to ground. Then you are talking about the next part, which is politics, which gives you a good sense of where is the macro environment headed to and allows you to position yourself in the right place at the right time. Yeah, which is about sensing opportunities. Then finally, you talk about economics, right? Economics is the human behavior that drives every other business activities that's going to go around. So all this puts you in a very good macro environment to position yourself in the right way. Then the last part of it is just, do you have the hard tools to get it out? Like for me at this point in my life, definitely the hard tools that I choose to have is actually media, right? And why did I position myself in this way? Is because 5 years ago, I saw Japan using celebrities as their endorsement for banks. I think one day it'll happen in Malaysia. And when you look at the past trend, generally it's going to happen that way where Malaysia follow other countries. And so yeah, I didn't stumble across what I do accidentally. It's quite a meticulous thought process to actually do it, right? And so to put it back in place, I think that if there's a good program on PPE, but unfortunately the time don't have lah. Yeah. So I think that would be something that I would start off with, or just purely economics. Yeah. But again, it needs to be a good school, because I also have met a lot of people who did these few subjects from a bad school, and it's just bad. Yeah, economics from a bad school is bad lah. I'll just put it this way, because they only know how to read newspaper, but they don't know how to interpret, right? Yeah.
Yeah, hopefully that won't be the case here at Taylor's, and I think with lineup.
I think it won't be lah with you there.
Thanks for the vote of confidence, and also with our industry advisory panel as well. Yeah, and you talk about celebrities endorsing products in Japan. Right? Here in Malaysia, maybe we're setting a new trend. We have politicians or former politicians that are endorsing things like mattresses and software and things like that. So, maybe Malaysia is a trendsetter in a different way. Lastly, Peter, if let's say you were thinking about, your own children, you have 2 children.
Yep. 2 boys.
2 boys. How old are they?
7 and 4.
Okay. Just thinking ahead in terms of their education experience, I'm sure you and your wife have discussed it a little bit. What kind of education experience or exposure do you want them to have, as they grow up? What is your thought process from that angle?
Ooh, if I tell you an answer, I'm probably lying to you. Yeah. So I can be very upfront that I don't really mind about whether my kids get good academic grades, simply because I myself actually I didn't do very well throughout lah. Yeah, I didn't do very well throughout. Yeah. But I think more importantly is I want them to be constantly exposed to an environment where they are able to use their train of thought regularly. So one thing that I'm not very happy sometimes with the current education system is it is just a copy and paste kind of method where you just copy the homework, you just get it done, you just copy, then after that you get your marks there. I don't really like that. Yeah, I think that, God give you a brain, Yeah, so you're supposed to be using it. That's how I feel. And so I'm very interested in a study model where they are able to explore subjects more in depth and think about it. Now, however, at the same time, I also think that maybe because of myself I didn't do very well in school, and then later I managed to hang out with quite a lot of smart people like yourself, and people around here, right? That I learned to think better. I think on the other hand, character building will be one of the most important things that every education need to provide. So I was quite happy when you all talked about the importance of bringing down PPE to the practical level, right? It is very different when you just study it and you go down and work it, because when you go down and work it, your boss is not gonna go tutor mode with you lah, right? Your boss is gonna go like, hey, you never think one and then you're gonna be like, oh, so sad, right? And then you need to be able to learn to engage your thinking facility regardless of your emotions. So that will be number one focus for me for my children education. And so I make it a point even until today if my kid get bullied in school, I will never go to the school and tell the teacher. What I'll teach my son is learn to block. Learn to block, learn to practice. And then I send him to jiu-jitsu. And then I just don't interfere. If he end up beating up the kid back, it's his problem. Yeah, but I will still say something about it, obviously. And I guess my point that I want to make is this, right? Is that character building during school years by exposing yourself to right people matters a lot. Yeah, in my opinion, it matters a lot. Because if you look at all sorts of different kind of skill set or thinking ability, right? You can read philosophy by picking up a book. You just need to find a place in time where you are interested, right? You can learn about economics as long as you get interested. Now, it helps when you have a good teacher, a good program, a good structure. But character is one of those only things that takes time. Leadership is one of those only things that takes time. No leader is made through a book. No character is built through reading. It's built through actions and years of learning self-control and building yourself. And when you have that, then you just need the stars to align, like everyone here has mentioned, be at the right place at the right time, and suddenly that interest just grow. And you are able to pick that up. Yeah. So that will be my main focus in my children education.
Yeah, so actually that's a very, I think, a comprehensive answer. I'd just like to highlight a few things as a response. Firstly, I think in Asian societies, we tend to think in terms of achievements only in terms of academics, and I think that's a wrong way of thinking about it, because there are different kinds of skill sets that you can develop which are equally valuable. Soft skills, for example, the art of persuasion, which is, I think, something that you're skilled at. And just because you didn't do well in academics when you were growing up, you've done well for yourself. And I think it is important to tell people, yes, we are in an academic institution, but there are also other forms of intelligence that we need to inculcate and also develop. I think that's one. Second thing that I want to talk about is with regards to what you talk about in terms of character building. Right, so there's the formal part that we're going to teach in the PP program, introduction to philosophy, introduction to moral philosophy, but there's also the other part, which is the part where you get to interact with other PP students. We are keeping the enrollment relatively small. We're hoping for 10 students for the April intake, 20 students for the September intake, so about 30 students a year. So keep that kind of engagement small, and this is the cohort that you want to spar with, that you can develop linkages with over time. On your note about this, teaching your kids how to fight back against bullies, right? These days,
not fight back, defend himself.
Yeah. No, but
correct that.
Yes.
Later people think
so this is where I think the thinking process is also a little bit different, right? When I say fight back, these days bullying is not just physical.
Yes.
Right. Often it is actually non-physical. The mental, anguish that you can inflict on other people. So when you fight back or you sort of like block, it's also about developing skill sets and resilience to respond through non-physical means.
Oh yeah.
Right. So that also becomes part and parcel of the learning process, and maybe something that can be developed and enhanced within an academic institution as well. So I think a lot of food for thought, both on the formal and also informal education part. And I really like to thank all of you for coming to engage with this session. Yeah. All right, with that, thank you very much for all your patience. I know we ran over time a bit, but please feel free to come and chat with us after this, especially for those of you who are interested in the PPE program. Thanks, Peter. And this is Are We Okay? Signing out from our first live show, and then we'll see you online in future weeks.
All right, see you guys. Take care.
Bye-bye.